Hello, everyone. Welcome to Awaken Your Freedom Show. Please subscribe to support our growing community. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something, well, pretty fundamental, money. But we're looking at it through a lens that feels, I don't know, different, less like a math problem, maybe more like a life journey.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
We're drawing insights from Tiffany Aliche's really powerful book, Get Good with Money, A Path to Financial Wholeness. And it offers this perspective that, a lot of people find incredibly refreshing because it's not just focused on the numbers, right? It's really about building a life where your money actually supports your peace and your purpose.
And that's really the mission for our deep dive today, isn't it? To unpack this whole idea of financial wholeness. Like, what does that actually mean? And maybe more importantly, what are the truly actionable, empowering takeaways from this source material? Things you can use for your own journey, without feeling totally swamped or overwhelmed.
Exactly. So let's maybe start right there, this concept of financial wholeness. When we talk about typical financial advice, it can often feel, well, pretty restrictive, maybe even just a bit like a lecture you've already failed before you even start. How does this idea of wholeness kind of push back against that?
Yeah, I think that's the core difference, really. Instead of finance being this set of rigid rules you have to nail perfectly,
Yeah.
or else, Tiffany Aliche frames it much more as reclaiming your power. It's presented like a roadmap, not some kind of judgment.
And she's super clear about what wholeness isn't. It's not about chasing perfection or, suddenly becoming a millionaire overnight or even living this super strict, deprived life. It's more about getting all the different parts of your financial life, all those pieces to work together in harmony.
Harmony, yeah.
So the ultimate goal isn't just like a big number in your bank account. It's the peace and the ability to pursue your purpose that comes from getting everything aligned.
Peace and purpose. Wow, that really shifts the goalpost entirely, doesn't it? Makes it much more about building a life, not just, building a fortune. And the structure she provides for this, for wholeness, the backbone of the book really is her 10-step framework.
Yes, exactly. She lays out these 10 interconnected pillars. She talks about them as building a strong, balanced foundation for your financial house, basically. You can think of them as like a full life checklist, but also a mindset shift and even a lifestyle change, all kind of woven together.
Right. And when you actually look at the list, they cover pretty much everything. You've got budgeting, saving, debt payoff, credit, income, investing, insurance, net worth, even working with financial professionals and estate planning. It feels incredibly comprehensive when you see it all laid out like that.
It definitely does. And look, for someone who's feeling overwhelmed already, just hearing that list might seem like, whoa, that's a lot. But the powerful takeaway, and the source really emphasizes this, is crucial. You absolutely don't need to master all 10 steps at once. Not even close. Every single step you take, even if you just focus on one or maybe two to start, that moves you from that place of stress, that feeling of just surviving, towards strength, towards actually thriving.
That's such a relief to hear, isn't it? Seriously, it takes that immense pressure off needing to be some kind of expert overnight. And that idea she presents that getting good with money isn't about being rich, it's about being ready. That feels incredibly liberating.
It really does.
Ready for opportunities, ready for challenges, ready to actually, live your life.
Ready is resilience. That's a good word for it. And speaking of the path to getting ready and building that resilience, a huge part of what makes Tiffany Aliche's message connect, I think, with so many people is her radical transparency. She teaches without shame. And a big reason is she's been there herself.
Yes, the source material makes this point so vividly. She's really open, sharing her own story of struggling, being broke, dealing with significant debt, even getting scammed. She basically built her own financial life back piece by piece and now uses that very real experience to guide others.
Right. And there's that specific example she shares about losing $35,000 in a bad investment. Think about it. Most people in the finance world would probably try to sweep that under the rug, right?
Oh, absolutely. Keep that quiet.
But she talks about it really candidly to show people, look, here's how you learn from mistakes and here's how recovery is actually possible. That kind of honesty compared to just generic advice, it's a total game changer for a lot of folks.
It really highlights who this message is meant for, too. As the source material points out, many people aren't really helped by those, loud voices just pushing aggressive strategies or maybe quick fixes. They need guidance from someone who actually gets the reality of financial trauma, understands the stress of living paycheck to paycheck, and offers a real path forward, but with empathy.
Totally. And that path, quite often, starts with the B word that makes so many people just cringe, budgeting. But her approach completely flips the script on what budgeting means.
Absolutely. She reframes it entirely, not as this tool of restriction, saying no to every little fun thing, but actually as a tool for empowerment. It's less about denying yourself small joys and more about giving yourself permission to say a massive yes to the big things, the stuff that aligns with your deepest values.
She puts it so perfectly when she says, and I'm quoting here, a budget is permission to spend on what matters.
Hmm.
Just that simple shift in perspective, it can be completely transformative for how you feel about managing money.
It really is. And the idea of calling it a freedom plan instead of a budget, like the source suggests, that's just brilliant. It immediately changes the feeling from like constraint and scarcity to control and clarity, and maybe even calm. It's about building a system that ultimately gives you peace of mind.
Because, let's be real, and the book is very direct about this, you can't just wish your way or like manifest your way out of financial chaos. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah, probably not.
You have to actively plan your way out.
And that planning, as the book points out, isn't just about the spreadsheets and the numbers, is it? It's also deeply tied to getting emotionally fit with your money.
Oh, that's a huge component the book explores. It really acknowledges the powerful emotions that get wrapped up in our finances. Things like fear, shame, that urge to just avoid looking at things altogether. We've all felt that, right?
Definitely.
And it recognizes that, hey, many of us just weren't taught these skills. Or maybe we carry financial trauma passed down through generations or from our own difficult experiences.
That's such a powerful observation. And the game-changing insight there, I think, is that your money habits often aren't random. They're actually coping mechanisms, maybe in disguise, things you developed to deal with those emotions or that lack of knowledge. So truly getting good with money isn't just about mastering the mechanics, like the math part. It requires a pretty significant level of self-awareness to understand the why behind your actions.
Exactly. And that self-awareness needs to be paired with, forward movement, action. There's a quote in there that really captures this balance perfectly. Give yourself grace, but not permission to quit.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Acknowledge the emotional difficulty, sure, but use that understanding to keep taking steps forward, even small ones.
And moving forward can feel especially tough if you're starting from a place where maybe your income feels limited. But the book strongly emphasizes building wealth with what you have right now, not waiting until you earn some hypothetical higher salary down the road.
Precisely. The message is really clear. You don't need a six-figure income to start building wealth. What you absolutely do need, though, is a plan and persistence. And the source material isn't just theory. It's packed with real-life stories. About people who built financial wholeness step by step. Single moms, first-generation graduates, people who were deep, deep in debt. Their stories really showed that this framework actually works in the messy real world.
Like that example you mentioned earlier, maybe, about the reader who used Tiffany's free challenge and went from being, $100,000 in debt to completely debt-free in just 4 years. Just by implementing the habits taught in the book. That's such a tangible example of the power of a plan and just sticking with it.
It really drives home that bold idea. Wealth isn't defined only by how much money lands in your bank account each month. It's much more about how effectively you use the resources you actually have and building your capacity to be independent, to go without depending solely on others or that next paycheck. That independence is a form of freedom.
Absolutely. And ultimately, this entire path, this journey towards financial wholeness, it circles back and connects directly to overall financial wellness, doesn't it?
Yeah, the source material makes a very compelling case for that connection. Basically, when you achieve financial wholeness, the benefits tend to radiate outwards into like every other area of your life. You often find yourself sleeping better, maybe thinking with more clarity, even being able to sort of love more deeply because that constant weight, that burden of financial stress is lifted, or at least lessened.
And it sends such a powerful message of hope, too. That it truly is never too late to start this journey. It doesn't matter if you're 22 or 52, you can begin building this structure for yourself. It shifts your energy maybe from constantly chasing a feeling of security to actively constructing a foundation for real freedom.
So bringing all these different pieces together, now for you, the listener, this framework from the book, it really offers a genuinely different path. It's not just about, tweaking a budget here or picking a stock there. It's about building a robust, interconnected structure across all the areas of your financial life, a whole system.
Right. And approaching it with this idea of wholeness rather than striving for some kind of unattainable financial perfection that fundamentally changes the game, I think. It turns the whole process from feeling like this daunting test you might fail into something more like building a strong house, where every single brick you lay strengthens the whole foundation. And understanding these concepts from the source material matters right now because it provides an empathetic, clear, and really actionable pathway towards a life with less financial stress and more purpose, no matter where you're starting from today.
It's really about recognizing that your financial health is just deeply, deeply intertwined with your overall well-being. You can't really separate them.
Absolutely. Which brings us right back to that central, really empowering message. You don't have to be perfect to begin. You just have to start somewhere.
And the final truth, which the book really highlights, is that money itself doesn't inherently bring you the deepest sense of richness or fulfillment. Peace does. And achieving that peace, well, really begins with having a plan, any kind of plan.
So, based on the source material, the advice seems to be let go of the guilt.
Yeah.
Ignore the external pressures, the confusing noise out there. The invitation is actually pretty simple. Pick just one of those 10 steps we talked about earlier, just one area, and take one tangible step forward. Give yourself that permission to just start there.
Yeah, and that could mean something really simple, like tracking your spending for just 1 week, see where it goes. Or maybe opening that dedicated savings account you've been thinking about for ages. Or spending just 15 minutes learning the basics of how your credit score is calculated. It's not that scary. Or even just reaching out to someone you trust, or maybe a professional, to ask one question you have.
Any single step builds momentum, right? It gets the ball rolling. So you think about financial wholeness as basically building peace in your life. Here's a thought, drawn straight from the source, for you to consider. What's the very first brick, just one single brick that you can lay, maybe even today, to start building that peace for your own future?
To close, please don't forget to subscribe on your favorite platform, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Spotify, to stay sharp and never miss a drop of knowledge that could change your financial life.